Yeah, 90-Day Fiancé. If you've heard of that show, it's a real thing. It's a real type of visa.
Are you an RV person? Or are you just RV life curious, wondering how people live in a tiny space with their family 24/7? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I travel full-time with my family and 2 kids and the dog in an RV. Every week, I sit down with a fellow RV woman to learn why she chose RV life and how she has changed on the road. Pull a chair up to the fire and let's chat.
Hello, my friends and fellow RV queens. This is Kate White, your host, coming at you from beautiful northern Michigan, as you can see out the window if you're watching on YouTube. This place is seriously the best. We're just freaking in love with Petoskey and the surrounding area. So if you haven't been here, seriously, get it in your travel plans. It's so cute. All right, enough about me. Today, I got the great honor of interviewing Chelsea Pambuka. And she is a former school teacher turned RV mom, RV homeschool mom. I don't even know if I have to include homeschool in the title because it's what we're all doing around here, people. She's also a content creator that is crushing it. They have one of the cutest toy haulers that you'll see on the internet. So I asked her for some design tips on RV renovation, and she shared some. She's also in a mixed race couple. She met her husband in South Africa, and he's originally from Zimbabwe. So their story has such a unique perspective because honestly, most RV families we meet are just white people. So I really liked getting her perspective on everything. I will add that she was sitting outdoors during this recording. So you're going to hear a little bit of wind chimes. You're going to hear a little bit of bugs chirping in the background. But you know what? It just adds some realness to the whole picture of what this lifestyle is about. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think you will too. Let's get into it. Hello, Chelsea, and welcome to the RV Queens podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure to have you on. Where are you guys right now?
We are in Illinois. That's our home state. So we're visiting family, and there's a new baby in the family, and just spending time with cousins and grandparents and stuff.
Oh, that's good stuff. Is it like a month that you're hanging out there, or what's your timeline there?
We stayed a little bit longer. Last summer, I think we were here for a month and a half or something. We're staying until the beginning of November. But we've been bouncing in and out of Illinois. We love going, we'll be going to Michigan. We're going to Wisconsin.
Cool.
So we're doing mini trips and then coming back. But yeah, kind of get the itch. Even as we were heading here to be stationary for a little while, we were leaving west. I was like, oh no, I already missed traveling. So
we mooched at my in-laws in, what was that, April, I think? And we were just planning to be there for 3 weeks, and then it turned into 6 or 7.
I mean, that's so nice.
I know. It was nice, but it was also I was starting to get the itch to be it's time to wrap this up and hit the road again. But,
it's so nice to have a space to mooch dock.
Yeah. It was a little bit Jimmy rigged together where we thought there was going to be 30 amp and it was not quite. And then, so it was all these power cords strung together and the AC never really worked. And I don't.
Yeah. And with those the crazy heat waves, did you survive all of that, or did you have to sleep inside?
Yeah,
there was some serious.
We were half and half because the kids just wanted to stay inside at their grandparents' house, and but me and Drew, it's just easier, when all your stuff's in the RV. You just kind of we're kind of in and out, so it was quite the thing. But yeah, I can relate with the getting the itch to travel for sure.
I mean, you need time to get all this stuff done. We need to Everybody needs to go to the dentist and the doctor. Right. And actually, we have insurance that we can do it anywhere. But it's especially with kids, it's a little easier to just go where we're familiar.
Right. So exactly. Okay. So you and your husband's story is super unique because, especially among RV people, let's be honest, the majority of RV families you meet are white American couples. I would love to dive into your story if you're willing to, and tell us. Let's start back how you met Malvin.
So after college, I went to South Africa to serve. And I worked in a township in a town called Jeffreys Bay, which I love very much. And we met there. He was living there. A friend of his that I was working with was also from Zimbabwe, and he introduced us, and we slowly got to know each other. And I mean, we're from across the ocean. And so I think we hung out like as a group for a couple months, and then we started dating. And I actually came back to the States for a little while. In between, I was going to actually stay in the States. And I am a teacher, and I was looking for teaching jobs, and I just felt like I was supposed to go back. So we were dating at that time through, I don't even know. I don't even think it was Zoom then. It's probably Skype. I went back and we kind of dated more seriously, and I actually led a group of students that came with me, and then we got engaged that year. So then he came here on a fiancé visa.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, 90-day fiancé. If you've heard of that show, it's a real thing. It's a real type of visa.
Oh my God.
I mean, the show 90-day fiancé is like the visa is called a K-1 visa. And so you are like, we intend to get married, and you have 90 days. And so that's why that show is called 90-day fiancé, because you have to, like, from the time they enter the country, you have to be married within 90 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's a whole thing.
I was just going to ask, like, you probably had to do some wedding planning before he got that visa, right?
Well, and the visa process is really long and stressful and expensive. And like, I don't know, people who do it for favors, like, no, thank you. I mean, it's a lot of work, and they really like question you. And different governments, we've had things of shift, and even like within states, how they manage it is different. So yeah, it was stressful. I mean, we spent like almost a year apart waiting for everything to go through. And it's like a process of you turn in these papers, and then they say, do this. And then he has to go for this interview. And then he had to go to a certain doctor. And then he had to go all these, he had to go to a certain consulate in Johannesburg. And so it was a lot of work. Yeah. When he came, I remember the day that he arrived. I was teaching. I had my first job as a teacher, and actually my principal let me go. Somebody covered my class, and I was like, I don't know. There had been this crazy, like, we'd been waiting all this time, and then there had been these crazy volcanoes in, I think it was in Switzerland. And so at that point, the days before that, they were like, flights had been canceled because there was so much smoke, I guess, from the volcanoes that planes like couldn't get out. And I was like, seriously, I've been waiting all this time, and now he might be delayed. But so then when he arrived in Chicago, all these people were coming because all these flights have been delayed from European countries because he flew through Switzerland.
Then you settled into Illinois. Was there some culture shock there on his part?
I don't know. South Africa is very diverse. I mean, he'd been in South Africa. So he's from Zimbabwe, but he had been in South Africa for about 7 years. And where, like, we were in particular, there were people from all over the world, food-wise, and just things like the malls and the stores there closed like 5 or 6. So when he came here and he was like, well, the mall's open till 9 or 10. That's amazing. I think food was probably the biggest thing. And just people, again, I like he would say when we go to the South, like how people are so friendly and they greet you. Like in Chicago, I mean, we lived in Chicago when we first got married, and people don't greet you on the street. Like everybody kind of does their own thing. And so that, I mean, yeah, there were pieces for sure but we had a lot of good friends that were also from Africa, and friends that we lived in South Africa with that were here.
You had to get married within 90 days. And were you guys settled in the same spot for a while, or were you kind of travelers from the beginning of your marriage?
I mean, we liked to travel, but we had like no money. I mean, I was a teacher. He went to school to become a diesel technician. When we first, I guess that was like our first year. Once we got married, he couldn't even work. Then he got his green card, then he had to get a work permit. So there was like all these pieces that had to happen. So it took a couple months, maybe like 6 months and I think he volunteered. He helped my mom a lot, and like my mom's neighbors. I remember there was a lot of snow that winter. Like he was just kind of in this place of, okay, what do I do now? I mean, it was just this long process of adjustment. And then we lived in Chicago for a couple years after we got married. But we had our first daughter, and we had gone camping with some friends, and they had a class. At that point, we didn't know what it was called, but they had a class C, I'm pretty sure is what it was. And we were like, this is amazing. There's AC in your fridge in your bathroom. But we still didn't have money. So we bought a pop-up off Craigslist. And oh my gosh, that thing was so sweaty to set up. That was because our daughter was, I don't know, probably 1.5 or something. And so then slowly, as we had more kids, we went from a pop-up to a travel trailer to a fifth wheel. And we always would watch YouTube and be like, oh, it's so cool to, it'd be so cool to do this. But life gets busy, and you're basically we were living to pay our bills. So we'd been married 11 years, when we finally bit the bullet and did it. Kind of a series of events just worked out, and my teaching job changed, and we started looking at selling our house and moving somewhere else. I was going to look for a different teaching job in a different district. And then as we were doing that, we had gone to Carolina Pines, which I know people love going there. That we haven't been actually back since then. And we were driving back, and we were at this point, we're both working remote. I was teaching remote. He was working remote. And we were what are we doing? We have 2 cars. We're using one of them because we're both at home all the time. We're about to sell our house. This is our window of opportunity to do this before our kids are too big, before we resettle. I mean, that was April of 2021. And by July, the end of July of 2021, we were on the road. We'd sold our house and tried to get rid of a lot of things, although we still have too many things in storage.
So it was kind of a mix of there was already a job change. You were already thinking potentially moving, and you guys were both already working remotely. Tell me about how your friends and family did fit into this equation. Do you have any other RV people in your family, or what was people's reaction when you said you were going to travel full time with 3 kids? And
I mean, there was a mix of people being sad, people being excited. At that point, teachers were so stressed. So my work friends were good for you. I think people weren't surprised that we wanted to do it because we'd always kind of said, but honestly, I feel we always said we wanted to do it, but that it really seemed pretty impossible. I feel COVID opened our eyes to working at home and realizing we don't really need all this stuff and all this space. And I was going to be leaving my teaching job because I was going to have to homeschool the kids. So that was, to me, I think that was one of the hardest parts for me because we'd RV'd, we were familiar. I know people who've RV'd and they've never RV'd before they go full time. So we were familiar. We really knew what we wanted in an RV. We really spent a lot of time. I mean, from April to July, knowing what we wanted to live full time, but we were familiar from being in various rigs prior to that. So I think leaving, I never imagined leaving my teaching job. I never imagined homeschooling my kids, although I enjoy it. All my life I wanted to be a teacher. And so to leave that job, that felt pretty sad to me. But we we were ready for a transition in life already. So it wasn't the fact that we were going to leave anyways where we were living. So I think it wasn't so shocking. But yeah, since then, my mom and her husband, bought a little RV so they could travel with us. But yeah, we couldn't get a lot of our friends in the Chicago. I mean, people near Chicago don't have RVs. So we didn't have a lot of we'd met friends on the road, but we didn't have friends that we could convince to get RVs with us. So that's been fun, being full time now and finally having RVing friends.
Yeah, I was going to ask about your homeschool approach since you were a teacher. What is your approach teaching your own kids, and how has your career as a teacher influenced that approach?
I mean, honestly, I think it changes every year. Totally different to teach your own kids than to teach in the classroom. And I was a reading specialist. So in the 4 years prior to going on the road, I had been working with just groups of kids with reading, and I really loved doing it. So it was really cool to be able, my daughter, she was already old enough in reading, but last year our middle son was in 1st grade. So it was cool and challenging to be the one to teach him how to read because it was hard because I know what I should be seeing and I know what should be happening. And so it wasn't as easy for him as I would have hoped it was. So Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've definitely like, it's different than being in school. And I think the socializing piece is like, that's such a part of like a classroom. And so we had to kind of figure that out with meeting other families and hanging out with them. But I've changed pieces of the curriculum that we did every year. Like there were things I'm like, this isn't working for me. Like I wanted it to be exciting that we were reading, like we just got our new unit that we're starting next week. And like my hesitant reader was looking through it and he was like, I'm taking a sneak peek, which is something I've taught him. And he's like, well, I'm so excited to read about this. Like, cause he helped pick that unit and I strategically let him go first, knowing that it would get him into it. But I think it was hard. I think because as a teacher, like you just kind of have these expectations of what your students are going to do. And so now I'm the mom and the lunch lady and the teacher, like all these things in one, like it's different. And I've had to like, I didn't have a lot of friends prior that homeschooled. And so now I'm like, what are you doing? Like what's working and what's not? Because it is different.
Yeah, for sure. And so do you do like very curriculum based and like workbooks and stuff like that? Or do you mix in experiential stuff where you go? Or how do you lay that out for your kids?
We mix and match. I mean, we use like a curriculum for math that's pretty set and the kids like it. And I've just stuck with that. We were also using their reading curriculum and I didn't love it. I wasn't enjoying teaching it. And I felt like the kids weren't loving it either. So we're doing more like unit studies. And so we'll all study the same thing for this. And this is kind of incorporating our science, our reading, our social studies. And then it's easier because then I find like when the kids do independent reading time, they're reading about whatever that topic is, or we're reading about it together, or we're finding whatever it is, a museum or a zoo, or like last year we did this really cool unit on inventions. I think it was last fall. And it just fell that we were near Gainesville, Florida, that had this incredible invention museum. And to like see what we did in the unit, like just the kids were like so excited. You go to a museum and you're like, this is cool. But they were like, oh, we learned about this and this is that invention. And to see like that as a mom and as a teacher, like that to me was like, this is awesome. This is what it's about. Like for them to tie it together and find that excitement. Like we went to the library yesterday, the two boys and I, to get books for our unit starting next week. And they're like, oh, let's get this one. Let's get this one. So to kind of, find ways to tie it together, which the library is something I miss. Like I actually, when we're in places for longer than a month or longer, I try to get a library card there. Every place is different about their rules, but like I miss as a teacher, like having access to books all the time because we can't carry them all on the road. But like, I want the kids to always be changing what they're reading about.
Every city we've gone to for actually just more than a week, I ask if they have a temporary resident card. And most places we've gone do offer that. One, I've had to pay, like sometimes it's like $20 or whatever. But a lot of times it'll be free. And I've been really surprised. I didn't know that was a program that so many libraries offered. Cause yeah, that's one of my favorite things with the kids too. It's like you get to a new place, you settle in, you go to the library, get a bunch of books. I'm like, I never thought I'd be so excited about the library. But when you're with kids, it's just like a fun place. Does your husband work full time from the road then while you're doing kid stuff?
Yeah, he does.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, give us an idea what your usual daily routine is, because you're a full-time travel mom, you homeschool the kids, you're also a content creator. And how do you fit all these pieces of your life, into a daily schedule? I
mean, we try to have a routine with homeschool. I think one of the hardest things for me in transitioning from being a teacher at school to being a mom teacher is like we've had mornings, they wake up and they're just playing Legos and they're getting along. And I have a 4-year-old, which when we started, he was 2. And so he wasn't, he wasn't always playing with everybody, or they weren't all playing together. And so I've had to like adjust my expectations on what our mornings might look like. And so sometimes if, they're creating magnet towers and they're getting along really well, I just let them be and then maybe shorten our day or push it back. Because in the beginning I was like, we have to start and we have to get up and like, this is going to be our routine. And like, it's not the same. Like, it's not the same. And because the young one doesn't have, like, he's starting school with us on Monday, but it'll look different. I just had to, kind of adjust our routine. So we, for the most part, I mean, like, we stick to a schedule of we try to get school done by lunch, or kind of like the kids, because math is pretty independent. Like, they might eat lunch and do math, and hopefully by 1 or 2 we're done. And then in Florida, we are swimming all the time. Like, that's probably our go-to activity. But trying to get out and explore or find a park or go to the library. But I mean, it depends. Like, the beauty of working remote is, like, my husband can help make lunch or brunch, or maybe he has a break in the middle of the day and he might have a meeting because he has international meetings. Like, maybe he'll have meetings in later at night. So we'll just kind of adjust as need be. But I just feel like it's for meals and, like, family, like, before we both went to work and we were gone all day, and then we pick up the kids and, okay, who's making dinner now? Okay, now we got to get ready for bed. And then you just do it again. Like, I feel like it's okay. Like, if our day kind of ebbs and flows and, like, we're already all together, which is a good thing, but can also be a challenge some days. It's amazing. Like, when we're obviously, as you know, when there are other families that are close that have kids and you really connect with them, because the kids really look forward to, like, okay, we want to go outside and play with, whoever it might be that we're with. But it's challenging when we're not, because we're not always necessarily, near another family that the kids click with, or that are there or not there very long or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I say we have a routine. Yeah. It's loose. I mean, I think content creation, I try to, like, if the kids are working independently, I might work on a project I have, or a lot of time stuff happens once they go to bed. And they're pretty good about, because they, we finish school and they play. I feel like they crash pretty hard when it's bedtime. And so that gives us, but then it's a balance of, we want to be alone. And so, yeah, I mean, again, like with content creation, like, I want a routine. That's just like my nature to want, like, okay, we have to have, it has to, at 9 o'clock we do this and whatever, but that doesn't happen like that. It just doesn't. And I kind of have to squeeze it in as it comes. The kids, we try to have, like, a quiet time in the afternoon. And that is usually when I try to squeeze in some time. But finding it was hard for me to find a balance of, because when we started on the road, I wasn't creating content. I mean, I was, but not as an income. And so now that it's more of an income, I have to figure out how to, like, not put all of my focus into that, because I like working. I love teaching. I loved working. I really like creating. I don't know. I like the challenge of what brands asked me to create, and I like getting new deals. Like, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's thrilling. And so I have to find a way to separate and not focus on that fully.
Me too. I'm the same way. What I've learned is, like, I never try to do both at the same time. Because I just end up becoming a grouchy mom. Like, if the kids are, like you said, like, playing quietly, I'll, like, sneak over to my computer, and be like, blah, 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 try to do a few things. But it's like, the minute they ask me, or, like, something comes up, I'm like, okay, this was just borrowed time. I gotta wait till later, because if I try to do both, it turns into not a happy place. So that's good. So I want to ask about, this is kind of changing topics, but the design that you've put in your RV, like, kind of the, I guess you could say, interior design of your RV, it's so cute. And you just seem like such a natural at that. And it sounds like you've had several RVs before this one, and you really were intentional about choosing this toy hauler for full-time living and stuff. So what are the biggest RV renovation lessons that you've learned over the years?
We didn't renovate either of our other 2 rigs because we were just weekenders. I think because this was going to be our home, which I know people are like, oh, it's going to lose value. And I'm like, yeah, but we want this to feel like home. Like, I don't want it to feel like an RV. And I love creating space. Before we went on the road, on top of being a teacher and a mom, I also flipped furniture, which is kind of how content creation actually started for me, because I was doing that. I had just been starting that probably like 6 months prior to going on the road. I was really getting into, and I like loved it. And I was making decent money, not yet off content creation, but off flipping the furniture and selling it. So I really enjoy painting. I like being creative. And so I was just like my husband is totally on board with like, hey, I need your help with this project. But most of them are like, it's just like, it's relaxing to me to paint, and it's a lot of work. And I 100% would renovate before you live in it. We had such a short amount of time. Like when we got we ordered our RV. At that point, people didn't know much about Alliance. And even somebody at a certain RV dealership was like, oh, I've never heard of them. You shouldn't buy that one. And I'm like, okay, we've loved them. They've been fabulous. And so when we got it, I think we had about 3 weeks to like move out of our house, move into the RV. But that was like so incredibly stressful. I remember crying in our driveway, like, I can't do this. But we wanted the kids' room to be ready, and we needed our room to like, we needed the furniture to be secure and ready there. So most like those pieces were ready when we moved in. But like the whole living room area, that was all stuff I've like done along the way. Just like, I'm going to sand this down today. So I don't know. I mean, it's like a relaxing hobby. The kids will go to bed and I'm going to paint something now, or, oh, I want to change this hallway. And it definitely adds work, but like to me, I like doing it. So it's not stressful.
So it sounds like you were kind of familiar with, a little bit of renovation and stuff as far as furniture goes. That probably translated to the RV pretty well. I'm just so nervous about ruining something. For example, painting the walls. I'm like, if I don't do this in the 25-step process that YouTube tells me I have to, then I'm gonna, it's just gonna be like in shambles. And I just feel so nervous about it that makes me not want to touch anything. So, and like I've never done anything renovation wise before. So I just probably need to just try it. See what happens.
I mean, pick a small spot that if you mess it up, you can cover it up or something. Yeah, painting the walls were, and I can't think right now of what the paint I used. It's sitting in the RV because I want to paint other walls. That part was that was hard because it's like a texture, like ours is like kind of a textured wallpaper. I don't even know what it is. Ours wasn't a bad color, but I didn't love it. But it's hard because if you're living in it, you're like, okay, I've got to do this now and nobody's going to touch it. And then I have a short amount of time for it to dry. And like, I know other families have moved out of their rig and done projects. Like that would probably be like, if you could park at your family's house and do it there, that would be more ideal. We don't have a setup like that because right now it's sitting and I would love to do projects on it. But yeah, it's hard in a tiny space. For sure.
One of my favorite things about traveling is that it kind of shakes you out of your old routines and habits and like ways of thinking and stuff that you didn't even realize that you were set in. So whenever you think back to Chelsea before RV life and Chelsea now, like you've done a lot of traveling, a lot has changed over the past couple of years. What has changed in that Chelsea before RV life and Chelsea now?
I think before RV life, like I was always just a little more hesitant. I was more cautious. Like I even remember as we were packing boxes in our house, I was like, what are we doing? Like, what if we absolutely hate this? What if we, like it's so small and we're going to be so crowded and I was panicking, honestly, because I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? I loved our house. I really loved our neighborhood. Like we were just getting connected because our kids were just getting into school. It was a really diverse neighborhood. Like it was pretty unique. And another worry, and you brought it up earlier, like I had was our kids aren't going to look like a lot of the other families on the road. Like, are they going to feel like they go to this school that's really diverse? And are they going to feel funny? Because not a lot of kids have skin like them on the road. And they haven't even I think maybe one time we've been on the road 2 years and maybe once it's been an issue. And it wasn't even I was the one who noticed what the issue that happened and they didn't even think twice about it. So I think just take the risk. Like as I was freaking out in our house, we were like, Malvin was like, okay, if you hate this, 3 months in, 6 months in, like, then we're done. It's okay. Because are we going to look back and be like, well, we should have done that when we wanted to, when we had this window that just everything was open for us to do it. So I just feel like if there's something you're considering and you're able to do it, like, I know that this isn't logistically doesn't work for everybody, but I just feel like everybody has something that they're like, I just really want to do this, but I just am too scared. Because that was kind of us. Like, we would watch people on YouTube and Instagram and be like, this is so cool that they're doing, but it didn't seem like we could really do that. Like, we had a lot of bills to pay. We had a lot of life that we had to kind of handle. And all those things just kind of worked out. And we realized, like, we don't need, when we were looking for houses, we were looking for probably double what we had before. And now I'm like, I don't need that much space. Like, I think that's something RV life teaches you too. Like, I don't need so much stuff. Like, you think you want it, and now that you don't have it, you're like, I don't even know all of the things that are in storage. Like, we're gonna open the storage, and I'm like, what is all this stuff that we kept? Like, yeah. I think that's a big thing. Like, living with less and taking a risk and going out of your comfort zone. Like, it feels funny to, leave where you're used to everything and where you're going. Like, you have to figure out the grocery store in a new town and all of the things, like basic life things. And sometimes it feels like I've definitely come out of stores, like a store like Target, and I'm in a city and I have to be like, okay, wait a minute, where am I? Like, which city am I in right now? Because I was like in another Target last week somewhere else. But I think just part of that, like I've seen that our kids are comfortable, like they're really outgoing with people. And like, I've seen a lot of really good from this risk that we took. And so, yeah, I think I would say take a risk and live with less, because we live in a culture where you just have so much stuff. And still, even in RV, I'm like, we have too much stuff still.
Especially when it comes to kid stuff, I'm just constantly like opening these cabinets and I'm like, really? What is this?
I don't know. We donate stuff, I think, every month.
Whenever I see that we're close to a thrift store, I'm like, yes, thank God. It's awesome. Would you say that RV life is what you expected from it? And why or why not?
I think you watch, YouTube especially, like, makes it look so romantic. And it is. Like, I think you have those moments. Like, you have moments where you feel like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this tiny space. The weather's really bad outside. Like, everybody's driving me crazy. And then you go to these like amazing, epic locations, or you meet these really cool people and you're like, it's worth it for this. And so, but then at the same time, I think of like, you're in a house and you feel like everybody's driving me crazy in here too. So like, why not explore and have everybody drive me crazy, or have those frustrating moments, because it happens in both. Like, it's not just because of an RV. Sure, some days it feels harder, but I don't know. I think you see like people meet these, everybody makes these friendships and you see it. I think Instagram and YouTube like gives you this picture, and so you're like, well, this is what it's going to look like, which it can, but I think to like actually make those close friendships and actually, fall in love with those certain places for yourself, it's just like, you can't describe it until you actually do it. And I think it's hard to not compare our journeys to each other's. Like, I feel like, especially, like I share the good things on Instagram, and sure, I share struggles too, but like, it's generally what you share, especially if you're making money off of your Instagram. And so I think just like, why did we do this as a family? Like, we wanted to be together and we wanted to explore, and we're doing that. And even if we're not at the rally with all those people right now, that's okay. Like, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. 'Cause I think, the world of social media makes it sometimes feel like, oh, I'm missing out on that, or I'm not. Well, that's not why we started this to begin with. Like, we started this for our family. And so I think coming back to that and looking back at, like, we've been to some really cool places and we fall in love with some cities, and places we like had no idea or had no plans of going to. And it's just been really cool. Like it's been cool for our kids to make these connections. And I don't know, to be so excited to put a state sticker on. Like I kind of have an addiction to like, oh my gosh, let's go to a new state. And the kids do too. And so I think just that like sense of adventure. And I think we'll always have that, even if we will eventually get a house and we'll have some sort of RV. And so I think just to keep that adventure going, even if it looks different when we're more stationary.
So if you guys had to pick a place to settle right now, I mean, you've been on the road, what, 2 years? So you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're ready to stop or not, but if you had to pick a spot right now, where would it be?
Right now, if I had to buy a house right today, we'd buy in Michigan. We just love Michigan as a special place in our heart. We, like when we left the Midwest and we left the winter, we were like happy to be away from the winter. But then when we didn't have fall and winter, we really missed it a lot. And so I think we've always said, okay, we would love to stay where there's seasons. And now we know that we can leave for a little bit of the winter and not be there for the duration of it. I don't know. I mean, that's if we were to buy today, that's where we would go. Because we initially were like, we're going south and we're staying south. And no, like that. Yeah. I don't know. The heat and humidity down south, we like can't survive. It's not like that in South Africa. And so my husband was like, nope, this humidity he says it's like being inside somebody's mouth when it's humid like that.
Oh my gosh, gross. I've never heard it described that way, but that is so true. Yeah, we are also from the Midwest and we have also become obsessed with Michigan. In fact, we were supposed to head south by now already, but like we decided to go back up to Petoskey, which is, for people that don't know, is like the north, like very almost to the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. And because we just fell in love with this town and the weather, and it's just last summer to love Michigan so much.
I'm like sad now when I see people go there. We haven't been up to Petoskey and we won't make it that far north this year, but I'm like, there's just something about it we just really love. And the winters, I mean, I grew up outside of Chicago and the winter is like not, like what do you do in the winter? Nothing. It's gross. It's dirty. Like I feel like because I went to college in Michigan and in the winter people like get outside and they do things. Like you're outside and you find, like I don't know, what is that thing? Snowshoeing or like stuff like that. Because in the city, that's not a thing. Like, you don't do that, but there's so many beautiful places there.
Yeah, that was the same for us too. I mean, we were in Florida last winter and it was the first time anyone in our family had ever skipped out on winter. It felt like we were like cheating the system, right? But our kids, especially my 9-year-old daughter, is like, she really wants to see snow this winter, even though we're planning to go back to Florida. But so now when we're up here in Michigan and the locals are like, I don't know, there's so much snow up here. If you want to move here, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, well, we dealt with cold, snowy winters anyway, but at least there's stuff to do. And it seems like people are active and going to skiing. And they have, what are those they're like jet skis except for snow. I can never remember the name of them.
Snowmobiles. Yeah.
They have signs. Snowmobile cross. I haven't been anywhere else in the Midwest that has snowmobile crossing in the winter. That's the coolest thing. I love it. Oh man. So do you guys have a couple more years of travel in you, or what's next for your family?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, which I think every RV family says, like, let's do it for a year. Okay, so we hit 2 years at the end of July. So we're just passing 2 years. And I don't know. I mean, like right now we're planned until April and we have a light plan. We're really hoping and planning to go abroad and see family in South Africa, if we can make that work. And yeah, we'll see. It's definitely expensive to fly with 5 to get there, but that would be our hope for the spring. But then part of me is like, I still have a few more places I really want to go before we buy a house. I don't know. I mean, we go back and forth. I think we might start planning for a house, but like here we are. I feel like when every winter has ended, we're like, okay, yeah, we'll start it's the spring. Let's start looking. And then I don't know. I don't know, honestly. Like I would say right now a year more. But I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I think what's going to be the deciding factor is if we can see that like our kids are done. Like if they're done and they're ready to be more rooted with friends and involved in activities, then like, okay, then that's good. Like we did a lot. I think they're still happy where we are, and like they're still happy when we meet up with other families that we met on the road and have the chance to like be with family that we are now. So I think that will kind of be our deciding factor. So we'll see.
Oh, Chelsea, I have one more question for you, and then I'll have you tell everyone where they can connect with you online. So the slogan for this show is a podcast about unexpected riches. And I would love for you to share what is the unexpected richness that you have found from RV life.
I think just the experiences that we've had together, like even something as simple as like we were both working all the time, and like we watched our kids like learn how to ride their bikes because we were just together all the time and we had the time to do it and be with them. But things like hiking and paddleboarding and seeing them, kind of conquer their fears and having more time to do it, like that's given us the gift of time. Like, okay, we're done with school. Let's go. Like we can do something now. It was different than like, we're working and you just kind of get stuck in the busyness. So I think just the memories that we've created and the opportunities that we've had with our kids.
Well, will you please share where our listeners can connect with you on the internet?
Yeah, so our biggest spot is on Instagram, and we're Kufamba the Traveling Tribe, which Kufamba means travel in my husband's native language. And so people think that's our last name sometimes, but that's his native language is Shona. And so we want to just we want to travel wherever, not just RVing. And so that's why we kind of made it a little more, we love to travel in RV, but we love to travel elsewhere with the kids.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was such a joy getting to know you, and I will see you on the road.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kate.
Thanks for listening to the RV Queens podcast. If you would like to be on a guest on the show, click on the link in the show notes to the guest application. And if you would also please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the video, that would help us out a lot. Thanks a lot, and I will see you on the road.
I love Michigan so much.